Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Navigating Life. This is a brand new series. Um, I was thinking about how to introduce this, and what occurred to me were a couple expressions. One is the line from A Tale of the Two Cities. These were the best of times, the worst of times. There's a Chinese proverb called "May you live in interesting times." I personally think we live in very, very exciting times, and we're on the edge of a tremendous breakthrough into what I call radical life extension, redesigning your brain, and maybe even living for immortality. I know that's a hard one. Some of you have heard me talk about this before. This is not a novel idea. When I was a little kid, I never thought I would die. This is interesting. Little kids, when they're growing up, they don't think about the future, except I want to be a cowboy or a fireman. They don't think about death. We get to a certain age and we start thinking about death. And I have a hypothesis that the theory and the belief of death takes us over and we lose control of our destiny. We forget that we are designers of our brain. We are designers of our destiny. This workshop is about you being a designer, a navigator of living a great life, a life of success, of accomplishment, of health, a radical life extension. I don't mean living to 85 or 90 or 95. I personally am going to live to 125, and then I'm going to make up my mind if I want to hang around any longer. But right now, 125 is my goal. I designed my life to go in that direction. And this series, 12 sessions, once a month, is going to be devoted to each month a particular theme of life navigation, navigating life. And we'll spend considerable time. Today is kind of an introduction to it. And what I want to talk about today are a few things. I want to talk about the question, how long do you want to live and why? I want to talk a little bit about what causes aging and death. And thirdly, I want to talk about something I call the Immortality Fitness program. Immortality Fitness, that's not just getting healthy for a wedding or a bar mitzvah, but getting healthy for life. And there's 4 basic components you have to appreciate and understand if you really want to live well, vitally, and fight the scourge of inflammatory disease, which is going to take over all of us sooner or later, unless we're going to do something radical. Now, maybe around 2030, 2035, 15 years from now, 20, 25 years from now, science is going to break through. And we're going to have what's called a singularity of science, where a number of scientists, I'll get more into this either today or another time, about how is science going to change our lives so that we eliminate degenerative and inflammatory diseases, heart disease, diabetes, respiratory problems, ulcerative colitis. All these diseases will be gone. By the way, we've eliminated a tremendous amount of diseases that would have killed us at age 40. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So science is really working for us, but we got to figure out a way to work with science. Because if we're not around by 2030, science won't do us any good. Because science, I don't think, is going to revive us from the dead. Maybe they can. I have no interest in coming back. I want to hang around. So I want to give you the best of what I've been studying for 15 years. I'm combining 2 things. I'm combining the work in my first book, Navigating for Success, Passion, Goals, and Results, with my new book, I Didn't Come to Say Goodbye, Navigating the Psychology of Immortality. I'm combining how to live in 3 worlds. What are you talking about, What's 3 worlds? I thought we just live in 1 world, reality. I think we live in 3 worlds. You take this or leave it. We live in the world of coping, of managing, of trying to figure out how to make things work. Going to work, going to school, talking, having relationships, solving problems, discovering. It's all the stuff out here between you as an individual and everyone else. It's you and the world. That's coping. There's another world called your internal world. It's your internal world of self-regulation. And most of us, from my point of view as a success coach, and a psychologist, are not doing really well self-regulating. I think actually the disease that's killing all of us or most of us is chronic disease syndrome. I'm sorry, chronic stress syndrome. We live under tremendous stress, which I'll touch on a little bit later. The third world, besides living in the external world called coping, you have to know how to cope. You got to know how to engage with people, solve problems, and be resilient. Number two, you have to know how to be self-regulatory, how to notice, are you feeling too much adrenaline and too much stress? A lot of us have no idea what it feels like. We think it's exciting. I think it's stress and tension, and adrenaline and cortisol are great chemicals and transmitters for acute stress when we have a problem to handle. But when we're feeling this 24/7, I got to tell you, it's like rust is to a car, water is to a car. Metal rusts and dissolves. The human body dissolves out of the rust of chronic stress. So in the third world, this is my new idea, is the world of the future. How do you shape the future? How do you design a future? So the future, in a way, see if you can get this, designs you. We create it first. Once we create it, and it's in our belief system and in our cells, because there's 95% of your brain, which is unconscious, once it picks up your belief that you feel and think organically that you're going to live for immortality, or write a book, or produce a film, or go to med school, whatever you want to do. Once the future in your mind gets it, it starts to design your life. So your life becomes future oriented. So we live in three worlds: external, internal, and now what do we do directed towards the future? Letting the future design us, not worrying about our future, but getting our future to be our allies. So key question: how long do you want to live? Really, how long do you want to live? You want to live to 80, 85, 90? Wow, no, getting up there. 100? Whoa, there aren't that many 100-year-olds. You know, the oldest person on the planet, I think, has recently been 122. There are blue zones that they call these healthy zones, and there are 5 of them around the world where people are living longer, less inflammatory disease. They stay healthy longer, and then they die. Because right now, none of us really know how to live forever. By the way, in 1900, over 100 years ago, the average age of death was 47. Year 2000, it's all about 80. That's almost a 70, 80% increase in lifespan. So think about, at that rate, just by evolution alone, how old will people be in the year 2100? You know, the next century. Will they be, if they double that, they double 80, would it be 160, 150? You know, how old are your children going to be? What if your children, because of the advances of science, and hopefully some things I'm going to be talking to you about, which is the Longevity Fitness program, will live to 300, 400 years? For some thinkers, this is not a long time. Aubrey de Grey in London, who's done phenomenal work on longevity, suggests we can live to 1,000 by probably mid-century. So if your kids are going to live 400 or 500 years, do you want to live to 80? Do you want to live to 90? You won't get to see your kids very long. You won't get to see your grandchildren very long. I like the idea of being able to have control over my age and my health. I don't want to be old. I don't want to age. Let me make a distinction. There's a difference between aging and getting old. You can age and not get old. Don't you know people in their 70s, 80s, 90s, running marathons, climbing mountains, writing symphonies, writing books? You don't have to follow the death psychology, death, D-E-A-T-H, which means at a certain age, you need to start to pull away. Pull away. No, you don't. You don't have to retire. I think retirement, by the way, is really bad for your health. You need to be active. You need to move. You need to be involved. So the question is, how old do you want to be and why? Who the hell wants to go through life suffering? Do you want to go through life feeling inflammatory disease and weak and disease? If you're that way, you might as well pop off as soon as you can. Get rid of the goddamn pain. By the way, In my first book, I talk about how people go through life. People go through life as navigators, survivors, and victims. You're one of the three. Only 20% from the people I see are navigators. People who live with passion, vision, goals. They take specific actions. You ever hear the 80-20 rule? I will get to that. Very important rule to living a powerful, focused, productive life. And maybe most important, they are resilient. They bounce back like a Super Bowl. They don't fall down when they're upset. They don't get crushed. Survivors fight. They get a lot done, but they're not very happy people. So you might get a lot done, but if your happiness level and joy level is kind of low, we got some work to do. Victims, about 30%, are people who are easily crushed and discouraged. Larry David's character, or George on Seinfeld, classic victims. I'm fascinated by them because I watch them on TV. I hate them, but I like watching it because it's so goddamn pitiful. I'm pitiful because I keep watching it. But, they're not me because I'm not a victim. Sometimes I'm a survivor, but I'm focused on learning the principles and the actions of being a life navigator. That's what this program is. I want to teach you and give you everything I know about life navigation and how to prolong your life with good quality. Okay? So, most people, I don't think, are living as navigators. In the 21st century, I think the disease that's going to kill us is chronic stress syndrome. I think the figures are, I'm just looking at my notes here, about 66% of women 18 to 19 complain of considerable to moderate stress daily. And in the past year, they've reported 58% more stress. 50% of the millennials, I think millennials are people born, probably go up to about age 32, if I'm correct. But anyway, the younger adult group, 50% of them have enough stress that they can't go to sleep at night. They have chronic sleep deprivation, which is one of the variables that we need to live. Chronic stress syndrome is not just affecting the elderly. It's not affecting just people going to war and having a hard time or poor. A lot of these people are doing quite well financially, but I think we're afflicted with this chronic stress of uncertainty, of anxiety, where we're going, what's our future look like. We've kind of lost the driving wheel of our car. If we're a boat, we're not holding on to the rudder. We're kind of rudderless. And by the way, our last presidential campaign of 2016, which we think has ended, has not contributed much to our feeling like navigators. I think the election has made us feel worse. Anger has increased. Suspicion and paranoia have increased. There's more of a them versus us. It really, this election, my personal sense, has triggered into a primitive zone in our brain called the survival brain, the survival reptilian brain, which I'll talk a lot more about in one of our future talks. But something got triggered. It's like an alarm went off. But after the election, the alarm didn't stop ringing. It's still ringing in our brains, thinking we're still fighting for the election. I don't think this is going to get resolved for at least 2 years. We're going to have to figure out over the next 2 years, how are we going to figure out how to live together, work together, cooperate together, and create a human habitat of navigators. Because right now, only 20% of the population appears to me to be navigators, 50% are survivors, and 30% are victims. So, by the way, aging does not mean you have to get old. There are people who are very, very active, like I said before. What is aging? Aging is an exponential increase in the probability of you getting weaker, having disease, and death as you age. It's a collection of degenerative diseases or processes that lead to 85% of death in the United States. It's a process of degenerative disease that grows over time and kills 85% of us. I think what basically happens is our cells divide, and every time they divide, they create energy. We need the energy to grow. If we don't grow, our proteins don't grow. Proteins in our cells are either growing or they're constricting. If they constrict enough, they stagnate, And what they do is they release or secrete high levels of harmful proteins that promote age-related disease, triggered by oxidation, which is the rust in your body, by free radicals, which are these energy particles that are homeless, looking for a cell or an organ to hold on to. And when they find a cell that should not be there for them, they attack, they invade the cell, and they suck the energy, and eventually they kill us. They break down our immunological system. Do we have to age and die? And why do we age and die? I think there are a number of key reasons why we age and die. I'll go through them quickly. But the one I really want to focus on is stress. Number one is stress. Number two is gene and DNA mutations. This is where cells divide and mistakes happen. Our bodies are not perfect. They break down. And by the way, we have toxins all around us in our air. Quality of our air has gotten worse. Quality of our water has gotten worse. We eat stupidly. I think over 60% of our population is overweight. 30% is probably in the obese factor. We're not doing a good job taking care of ourselves. Chances are you're not taking care of yourself physically. You're not taking care of yourself emotionally and psychologically, which is where my expertise is in how do you help people de-stress, move away from living stressful life, navigating life with energy and gusto and enthusiasm, and having a sense of growth. So, number one, we age and die because of stress. Number two, because of gene mutations. Three, the way we're designed. You know, we're designed a certain way, and we have to figure out how to design our bodies. And by the way, probably by 2030, with artificial intelligence, with STEM research, by 2040, because of nanorobotics, little molecular machines that will be injected into your body that will go after all the bacteria and the bad viruses and kill them. So we won't get infectious diseases. We'll be able to redesign our bodies. Now, some of this redesign work is really radical, and I want to get into that at some point. I mean, really radical. Like, you want to stay underwater, you want to learn to be a fish, well, maybe your body can be redesigned so you can breathe in the water, distill oxygen out of it, and stay in the water for a day or two, if that appeals to you. Radical? Yes, but I got to tell you, there are a lot of radical thinkers now, and they're tipping in the direction of becoming more normal. By normal, I mean more and more people, scientific people, physicians, studied people, are getting on board. This is no longer science fiction, folks. It's going to happen. The question is, can we stay alive and well long enough to profit from the gains we're going to get from technology? But that's not going to hit us for another 10 or 15 years. So that's why I'm talking about what I'm talking. And that's why I wrote the book. I didn't come to say goodbye. Navigating the Psychology of Immortality. I'm giving you a toolkit, an Immortality Fitness toolkit to stay alive and well. Okay, a third reason we age and die is because reproductive exhaustion. There are some species, as soon as they have sex and send their sperms or transmit their DNA, they plop over, they're dead. Humans, our job is to send their DNA to the next generation. So theoretically, when we figured out how to fool nature. Nature hasn't gotten rid of us. Nature wants us to be young and healthy and vital to transmit the DNA. But now you can be almost any age, particularly as a man. Sorry, woman. But men can hold on to their sperm and they can impregnate the woman, even when the men are in their 70s, 80s, 90s, or 100. It's not been unknown. Okay. Then there is the wear and tear of our body. Our bodies get beaten up, and we wear and tear, and we don't do a great job recovering. And then there's something called just waste product accumulation. We'll get into this later. The key thing I want to talk about today are two things: chronic stress syndrome and what we call the Immortality Fitness program. So acute stress is just simply, you need the adrenaline and the cortisol to get some blood and energy into your muscles, into your arms and your legs, so you can fight the bad guy, whatever is going on. Stress at work, something happens on the street. I'm not talking about that. That's important. We got to keep that going. It's the chronic stress. It's the chronic stress that stays with us 24/7 that we've gotten so used to, we don't even know our bodies are aging and dying prematurely. So what are some of the causes of this chronic stress? One is negative thinking. Negative thinking is, it isn't going to work out. I don't catch a break. Um, the boss likes him more than me. Or I'm never going to have a girlfriend. My life's not going to turn out. Our brains are wired for negative thinking, by the way. Okay? From Joe Dispenza and a number of other researchers, they're suggesting we have about 2,500 thoughts a day, 2,000 of which are negative. That's in our conscious mind. 2,500 conscious thoughts, 2,000 negative. We're wired to worry. We're wired to be stressed. Now, why would you ask that? We're not stupid. We're the highest level on the species, on the planet. Why would we do that? Well, we do that because we haven't evolved that. Our body designs are still like prehistoric brains in a technological world. We haven't figured out brain design, neurologically designed yet, how to live and thrive. There's a part of our brain, the survival brain, it's called the reptilian brain. It's back here, the back of your skull. It's programmed to look for things to worry about because it doesn't want us to pick up a squiggly stick and find out it's a poisonous snake. So I'd rather us if we be unhappy as long as we're alive and we can pass on our DNA. So negative thinking. The reptilian brain is, like I said before, sometimes an alarm goes off like a smoke detector. Smoke detectors are good. They let us know, whoops, that doesn't smell good. Get out of the building, fire, put out the fire. But in our brains, the smoke detector, once it's activated, it may not go off. When it doesn't go off, then the so-called reptilian brain. By the way, the reptilian brain is 400 million years old. And our other brains are wired upon it. Okay, our emotional brain and our thinking brain. The reptilian brain has been around a long time. It has no interest in leaving the planet or our body. So we got to figure out how to deal with this goddamn alarm. There's a world of limiting beliefs. Bruce Lipton, a brilliant biochemist, has written a few really good books. One is the biology of belief. I think the other one is called the honeymoon effect. And he talks about beliefs are biological. When you believe something, it becomes organic. Thoughts are to the mind, as emotions are to the body. Our thinking controls chemicals in our brain and our body that elicit physical emotions and reactions. This then becomes the language that controls the thinking. It may sound confusing, but suggesting to you, we're not such great thinkers. We're pretty problematic thinkers, and our emotions tend to rule us more often than not. We just got to notice last time you had an argument, how well were you able to take a deep breath and say, I didn't know you felt that way. I didn't know you thought I was a jerk. Tell me more about that. I'm open to learning. When human beings don't talk that way. It's more like, who do you think you are? You think I'm a jerk? Let me tell you how you're a jerk. So our limiting beliefs can be pretty bad. And our lifestyle. I think we live a chronically stressed lifestyle. In the last century, we have lost, maybe even less than that, we've lost a decade of recreational free time. We've lost it. It's around 30 days a year. It's gone. And by the way, with technological advances, there is no freedom. We could be found any place on the planet. I personally am addicted to my electronic games, my iPad, my iPhone. I love them. My wife says to me, we just left the party. Why are you on the phone? I don't know, Judy. It's like my phone's my friend. So, we're caught up in a lifestyle that doesn't allow us to catch our breath. Recovery time is really, really important. So again, I want to come back to this notion is chronic stress syndrome is the major killer in the 21st century to make us have inflammatory disease and die. So don't have a lot of time, but I do want to touch on something really, really important, which is the Immortality Fitness program, which I am designing. You're going to learn it over this next 12 months. I'm in the process of learning. I'm actually in the process of getting my brain scanned to see what my three psychological hungers, which are power, connection, and safety. How does it look in my brain? And then I'm going to put myself in my Immortality Fitness program and get my brain rescanned in 6 months, because I think it's going to take me 3 to 6 months to literally redesign my brain. I feel like I'm a contractor. I always loved to build, but I wasn't very skilled at carpentry. But I feel like I'm a carpenter rebuilding my brain. You ever watch the flip or flop house things where these young couples buy a house and they decide they're going to flip it or flop it and they do work on it? Well, I'm doing that on my brain. So here are the basics. If I don't have the time to get through my rest of my discussion, this is what you have to do. You have to pay attention to exercise. Exercise is like money in the bank if you're retiring. As money is to financial success, exercise is to physical longevity. And it has to be a very specific kind of exercise. Walking is good. That's called a moderate exercise. Will probably get you to about 60% of your oxygen ability. But interval, walking fast, walking slow, walking fast, walking slow. 2 minutes fast, 2 minutes slow. To get your heartbeat up to about, I think they want us about 80% of maximum. I think our maximum is take 220, subtract your age. That's your maximum. 80% of that number is the number of where your heartbeat should be beating for about 10 or 15 minutes, okay? Exercise. The second one is learning. People do well. Alzheimer's and dementia are reduced, and cognitive abilities and memory get improved the more people learn. I am very committed to learning. That's one reason I'm doing this. Everything I'm telling you is new. 2 years ago, I wasn't talking this way. So this is all function of learning. Hopefully I make some sense to you, so you might learn something. So one basic ingredient of longevity fitness is exercise. Number 2 is learning. Number 3 is diet. Get rid of your sugars, especially your simple sugars. I'm not an expert on diet. I'm learning about it now, but I'm very, very clear. Get rid of your simple sugars. Get rid of that. The other one is stress control. Stress control, if I'm correct, stress is the major, chronic stress is the major developer of inflammatory disease and degenerative death in our century. So it makes sense to me. Let's do some work on stress. So you can do that in a number of ways. I think we got to get off the horse. Getting off the horse means every day you got to take a break. We're doing some construction in our building right now. So one of our bathrooms is done. So we have a unisex bathroom. But instead of waiting in the hall, I decided to go outside, walk 150 yards to a restaurant I know, and go in there and take a pee. I got to tell you, the pee felt good, but what felt better was the walk. I got off the horse. I got out of my workplace, and I took a break. I think we all need 2 breaks a day, one mid-morning, one mid-afternoon. Turn off electronic equipment, get out, walk, hang out with a friend, exercise, listen to music, snooze, meditate. Meditation is a phenomenal way of de-stressing. I think you need activities that get you engaged in a healthy way, not in a worried way. There's a woman at Stanford University, Kelly McMonagle, talks about the default strategy of the mind. You need intention with an I and attention with an A. If you intend something like you're passionate about, and every day you're attending to it because it gives you pleasure, you will build what's called neurogenesis. You're rebuilding neural tissue. You're rebuilding your neurons. Every second, 10 million neurons die. Every second, 10 million neurons get born. The question is, what are they getting born into? Are they getting born into a brain marinate, which is exciting, an intention, or are they getting born into chronic stress syndrome? I think if they get born into chronic stress syndrome, they look around and say, what am I doing here? I want to get out of here. As a result, eventually your brains shrink, our neurons die, parts of our brain shrivel, particularly our hippocampus and our frontal lobes, and we're in trouble, and we set up over the next number of years the condition for degenerative disease and death. What Kelly talks about is you need intention and attention. If you don't, as soon as you defocus from what's important to you, 3 things happen. Number 1, you become self-centered. You think it's all about you. You get very, very personal. Number two, this is a scientific term. She suggests it triggers the shit center of your brain. The shit center of your brain. Scientists use that word, not me. The shit center of the brain is all your worries, all the regrets, all the stuff that people have done to you before. You get paranoid, you get anxious, you forget you're a grown human being in your life as well. And then the third thing that happens is you start looking around, left to right, look around for reasons for your misery. That is the default structure of the mind, which, by the way, is the reptilian brain. As I said before, that part of your brain that demands survival better than happiness. I don't care about survival. I care about happiness, longevity, living well. I love this idea about high intention and thriving. So this program is really about thriving, okay? And I don't know if we're looking at the slides, but I'm just telling you what we're doing. But I hope you can follow this. But if you go to, Nikki, take us to slide 7. Oh, yeah, here we go. So if some of you would like to look at what I'm talking about more intensively, 2 books. One was my recent book of 2016, I Did Not Come to Say Goodbye, Navigating the Psychology of Immortality. My first book, Navigating for Success, Passion, Goals, and Action. That first book, Navigating for Success, was based upon my work with some star athletes, high performers, people who are really living life, true, real people, not fictitious names. But I also write about survivors and victims. There was one guy who desperately wanted me to write about him as a navigator. And I said to him, I can't write about you as a navigator. He says, why not? Because they said you're a pathetic victim and you're at best a survivor. You're a nasty whatever. And he said, you're going to write about that? I said, yeah, if you give me permission to tell your story, that's the story I'm going to tell. He was so narcissistic, he said, okay, so he's in the book too. So I do not sugarcoat the book. It's the survivor, the victim, and the navigator. 2 useful books, I hope, that you might take an interest in. And the next one, please. So if you want to reach me, my webpage is navigatingforsuccess.com. You can see my phone number, 610-642-4873. My email is mossalin, MOSSALIN, @AOL.com. And the last slide, Nikki. Okay, so what is the Longevity Velocity Express? Aubrey de Grey, a brilliant scientist who has devoted his life to radical life extension and mortality, it comes down to this. Are your cells growing or are they shrinking? Are you regenerating faster than you're degenerating? We are on a longevity velocity express. It's going very, very fast. Life passes very quickly right now. So we got to figure out how to regenerate our nervous tissue, how to regenerate our cells, how to thrive rather than the opposite, which is inflammatory disease, degenerative disease, and losing the vitality of our cells. We are in a race. I hope you can join the race with me. It's going to probably be about a 20-year race around 2030, 2035, before we start to see some major, major breakthroughs of science that can really help us along right now. Right now, we have to help ourselves. So, hope you join me in my series once a month, Navigating Life. Hope you enjoyed the program. I enjoyed giving it to you. Good luck to you, and keep on navigating and stay healthy.